That's how you catch a fish with a hopper.
Scott, did he catch that fish fairly?
No.
Hey, I'm Ben. I'm a huge fly fisherman. Welcome back to another episode of Huge Fly Fisherman.
Today we're going to learn about fishing hoppers from a boat.
That's grasshoppers.
I love hopper fishing. It's my favorite type of trout fishing. This info applies to a lot of different kinds of boats. You can fish hoppers from drift boats, high sides, low sides,
Skiffs, prams, pontoons,
rafts, catarafts, SUPs, anything except for a float tube.
because they suck bad. Hoppers from a boat.
First, let's talk about your setup. What kind of gear are you going to use? Let's just talk about kind of a typical setup. 5 or 6 weight rod,
Graphite's good.
or fiberglass if you're one of those guys.
Your leader is going to be 9-ish feet long. 2 or 3X is good. Your flies are about that big.
You can use a shorter leader if it's a little windy out.
You can use a longer leader if you think you're some kind of hero.
A longer leader will get you a better drift. All right, once you got all that tied on, how do you fish it? When you're floating, the most important thing to remember is fish ahead of the boat. Your guide's gonna tell you that 1,000 times. Always be looking ahead and fishing ahead of the boat.
Future water. If you fish ahead of the boat, you're gonna get a longer and better drift.
Hoppers.
When you're fishing hoppers,
It's mostly about fishing the banks,
that's the side of the river, the shoreline.
Why the banks? Because that's where the grasshoppers are.
They're crawling around,
Eating grass, getting fat and happy, and falling into the water.
You're generally gonna be fishing shallow water.
Like where you can see the bottom. I think the best zone for hopper fishing is from the bank out to where the water gets dark and you can't see the bottom anymore.
That's where you wanna be fishing. Mostly really close to the bank though. And when I say close to the bank, I mean like this far from the bank. It's a game of inches.
If you're a foot off the bank, you might not be in the right place. Don't just cast blindly at the banks. Look for that little sliver of shadow right up against the bank.
That's a very good place to cast.
Even when it's bright and sunny, you can have a big brown trout hanging out in that little sliver of shadow. If you have a big, long, grassy bank, look for the little features that are on it.
A big stick.
A rock that sticks out, little tiny grass points and coves. It doesn't take much to hold a fish. If you want, you can call those little things micro features. But if you talk like that, I probably won't want to fish with you.
A lot of bugs out today.
We got tricos, betas, caddis, and hoppers.
Hoppers. Make sure you fish a fly that floats well and is gonna float all day.
My favorite hopper pattern is a Schroeder's parachute hopper, but it's not good for fishing out of the boat. It gets wet too easily. Maybe use a fly that has some more synthetic materials in it, like the chubby Chernobyl.
I mean, you really can't beat a chubby.
We're trolls hanging out under the bridge.
Let's talk about setting the hook. When you're fishing a big fly like a hopper and a big fish eats it, you're gonna have to wait on that hook set.
It's one of the hardest things to do in fly fishing.
Don't yank it out of its mouth.
Wait for that fish to eat the fly and take it down. And then you go all Bill Dance on him. And when you're fishing those big flies, remember to pinch your barbs.
Double hopper? When you're fishing a hopper, you can get away with being a little bit sloppy. If your fly lands with a splash, that's okay.
If it drags around a little bit, it's not the end of the world. All this stuff works for fishing any big fly, like salmon flies, and a lot of this applies to fishing dry flies from a boat in general, or even just fishing from a boat that's moving down a river.
What's happening?
And that's gonna do it for today. That's hoppers from a boat.
Thanks for watching.
Maybe you could like and subscribe.
Tie on a chubby.
Go out and slap some banks. I'll see you next Monday.
Stay huge. We're here at this spring creek catching native golden rainbows. Anybody got any dog food? This is why these fish are gross. This thing is dying. Both of its eyes have fallen out. Why do we stock these things?
Now that's just straight up disgusting. Nature at its finest, ladies and gentlemen.